This handicap reset is a little strange because I actually feel like I played better golf this week. I added 4 new scores into the record. A 9-hole 40, a 79 in the Mafia Men's Golf League, a 9-hole 41, and an 81 in the Mafia Men's Golf League again. And that feels like a much better stretch of golf than my last update. But the handicap did not agree. After the first 40 on 9 holes, it went up to an 8.2. After the 79, it dropped to an 8.1. And then I shot a 41 for 9, and it moved up to 8.3. And after my 81, it ends with an 8.5 this week. The scores looked a lot more encouraging, but the handicap still went up. And honestly, that might be exactly what this reset is supposed to show me. Hey Boom Squad, Back 9 Warriors, and anyone out there fighting for par. Welcome to Aim High, Shoot Low. I'm Bobby Golf, and this is my Handicap Reset series. This is the series where I try to get the most accurate picture to the current state of my game. Not where it used to be, not where I wish it was, not where one good round makes me think everything is fixed, but where it actually is today. And this update is important because I'm getting closer to the real purpose of this entire series. I'm not just tracking a number. I'm trying to finalize the reset, get the old scores expunged out of the system, replace them with current golf, and then use all that information and the stats gathered to figure out where I need to improve first. Because once I know the real number, I'll be able to make a real plan. As a reminder, in the last Handicap Index, I finished with a 7.9. That came after a stretch of scores that included a 43, a 91, and a 43. The update wasn't exactly what I wanted. The index had moved from a 7.4 to a 7.9, and I felt like the game was drifting in the wrong direction. But at the same time, that's exactly why I started this series. The whole point is to post real scores. The good ones, the bad ones, the confusing ones, the ones that make me feel like my game is coming back, and the ones that remind me I'm not quite there yet. So coming into this update, I was sitting at a 7.9 handicap index. And I was hoping my next series of rounds would either stabilize that number or give me more insight to where I'm currently at. The first new score was a 9-hole round of 40. That's 4 over par. And walking away from that round, I didn't feel bad about it. Felt pretty good. Wasn't the best round, but it was solid golf. And I feel like that kind of score fits my game right now. It's about where I think I am. A few mistakes, a few missed chances. Probably a couple shots I wish I had back. But overall, not a round that I walked away from thinking I've lost anything. But still, after I posted that score, I went from a 7.9 to an 8.2. That's one of the strange things about this process. A score can feel decent, but depending on what is already in the record, what scores are being counted, and what scores are being replaced, the index can still move the wrong direction. The handicap does not care how your round felt. The handicap does not care that I thought that was pretty decent. It looks at the score, the course, the rating, the slope, and the overall record. And after that 40, I was an 8.2. The next round was men's Mafia round number 1 on Monday. And that was the highlight of this episode. I shot a 79. And anytime I break 80 right now, it feels like a big deal. Not because I've never done it before. I played a lot better golf than that. But this current version of my game, I'm still trying to find consistency. And after the back surgeries, after the layoff, after rebuilding my swing, and trying to manage my expectations, breaking 80 is still big for me. It's a sign that my game is still there, somewhere. That round felt like a reminder. The old game might not be fully back. It might not show up every day. It's not lasting a full 18 holes, but there are pieces of it still there. And after I posted that 79, my index dropped from an 8.2 to an 8.1. So it helped, but not by much. And honestly, that's another good lesson in this process. When you shoot a 79, especially after seeing my number go up, you kind of hope the handicap system is going to give you a bigger reward. The handicap didn't say, "Great round, Bobby. let's drop you down a couple. It's just going to do math. Still, the 79 was important, not just for the handicap, but for me, because it told me the last few rougher scores I've shot were not the story. It showed me there's still good golf inside, and it gives me something to build on. My third score was another 9-hole round, and I shot a 41. And this is going to be in my next Chasing Glory video, so I don't want to ruin the round here, because you'll be able to see every shot from that round on my next post. And after I posted that 41, my index went from an 8.1 to an 8.3. Again, that's a little frustrating because a 41 does not feel like a disaster. It's not a number I'm chasing, but it's also not a round I'm walking away from super disappointed. And that's one thing I really like about doing both of these series concurrently. The Handicap Reset gives you the number. The Chasing Glory Days tells you the story behind that number, because the score in itself doesn't always explain the round. A 41 can happen a lot of different ways. It could be one bad hole. It can be a couple of missed putts. It could be a poor short game, which I can be guilty of. It could be good ball striking with very poor scoring. It could be a round where you feel very close, but the number just doesn't quite show it. So you'll get to see that round pretty soon. But for this update, the important thing to know is I shot a 41, and I went from an 8.1 to an 8.3. And then on Wednesday, I played another 18-hole round with the men's Mafia group and shot a 81. And again, I didn't hate that score. And 81 is not what I'm chasing long term. I want to break 80 much more often. And I want to get to a place where those breaking 80 scores are my regular again. But an 81 is still respectable golf, especially compared to my previous updates. The last update I had a 91. The update before that I had a 93. This update I had a 79 and an 81. So as far as golf goes, this week felt much better. The floor felt a little higher. The bad golf was less damaging, and the good golf showed up again. But after I posted that 81, my index jumped from an 8.3 to an 8.5. So I ended this week with an 8.5 handicap index. And that's the headline for this week. Better golf, worse handicap, at least for now. Here's the part that I think is important. Even though it is a little frustrating to see my handicap go from a 7.9 to an 8.5, it doesn't completely surprise me. Because if I'm honest about it, and I've said this for months, I feel like I'm playing somewhere between an 8 and a 10. That feels like an honest, current version of my game. Not the best version, not my old version, not the version that shows up for a good round, but the current version. A golfer who can still shoot below 80, a golfer that can still make birdies, a golfer who can hit some really good shots, but also a golfer that can throw in an 87, 91, 92, and a 9-hole 43. That's probably an 8 to 10 handicapper right now. And that's not an insult. People would love to be a 10 to 8 handicap. It's just information. I think one of the hardest parts of this process is separating pride from data. Because in my head, I know what I used to be. I know what my game used to look like. I know what scratch golf felt like. But this series is not about defending the old number. It's about finding the current one. And if that current number is an 8.5, 8.9, 9.2, 10.3, that's where we're going to start. Here's another piece of this update. Technically, I have 20 rounds total in Gen, but 6 of those are from years ago. They're the reason this series exists. Those 6 rounds are old rounds, and they're pretty good scores. Over the next 6 rounds, I'm going to be replacing an 84, an 83, a 79, a 77, an 82, and a 76. Those are the kind of scores that can hold a handicap number down. And if I'm replacing those scores with the current scores I'm shooting, my handicap will probably still climb a little bit, and that may sting a little. But again, this is the reset. It is supposed to give me the truth as to where my game stands today. And honestly, this is where I'm starting to get really excited about this series. It really is. Because once the old scores are gone, and once the record is fully complete and made up of current rounds, I can finally stop guessing. Right now I can say, I feel like I'm an 8 to a 10. But when the reset is finalized, I'll have a number. And that next phase becomes much more interesting. Because then I can look at my scores and stats and ask the important questions. Where am I losing the most shots? Is it off the tee? Is it approach play? Is it my wedges? My putting maybe? Is it course management? Is it blow up holes? Do I have a bad stretch every round? Is it a mental lapse? Is it physical fatigue? Is it just rust and inconsistency? This is where this series becomes more than just a handicap update. The handicap tells me where I am. The stats that I track and the rounds that I post will tell me why. And once I know, I can start building a real improvement plan. The most focus will go here. The second most will go here. Third priority will be here. This is when the reset turns into a rebuild. And that's the important part. That's the part I really look forward to the most. Because I don't want to just know the number. I want to use the number. Not just, here's my handicap, but here's what my handicap is telling me about my game, and here's how I plan to improve it. So even though this update ends with my handicap climbing to an 8.5, I actually feel pretty positive because the golf was better than the number makes it sound. There was a 79 in there. There was an 81 in there. There were 2 9-hole rounds of a 40 and a 41, so everything is pretty consistent. It is not where I want to stay, but it's also not hopeless golf. It's golf with a foundation. It's golf with signs of life. It's golf that says, okay, now that we know where we are, let's figure out what we need to do to make things work. And that is a much better place than guessing. I would rather have an honest 10.5 than a flattering 8.5 being held up by old rounds. Because once I know the truth, I can start chasing improvements the right way. So that's this update. I started with a 7.9. After the 9-hole 40, I went to an 8.2. Then after a 79, I went back to an 8.1. Then after a 41, I went to an 8.3. And after I posted a final 18-hole round of the week of an 81, it moved back to 8.5. Better golf, worse handicap, but maybe a more honest picture. And with 6 old scores still on the record, I know I've got some good golf I'm going to have to replace, which means the number may still move up a little bit, but that's okay. Because the goal is not to protect the old version of my game. The goal is to finalize the reset, get the current data, and then figure out what I need to focus on to put the most improvement in my game. First priority, second priority, third priority, then we get to work. Let me know in the comments what you would take from this kind of update. Would you be encouraged by the 79 and the 81? Or frustrated that the index still moved up? And make sure you watch my next Chasing Glory Days video, because that 41 is going to be that video. Thanks for watching. Aim high, shoot low. We'll see you in the next one.